Today is the 10th of October 2023. Good morning, Uganda, and thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, here with Chantal Olive Akandinda and Chirabo Robert Nyonyintono. Now, yesterday, Uganda was commemorating its Independence Day celebrations, and of course, the events took place in Kitgum district, where President Museveni, as the chief celebrant, said Ugandans, he basically reiterated his message that he has been spreading all through this year, where he again discouraged the export of raw materials outside the country and encouraged the export of finished products, but also decried wetland encroachment, and also he did have kind words for people that get themselves involved in corruption. So that was his message, and he was very stern about this. Lots of things happened, as many people also received medals yesterday from the president on the Independence Day. But of course, around the world, a lot of events are happening. There is a war right now going on in some parts of Palestine and Israel. We will delve deeper into some of these issues, but for now, let me check on my co-hosts, and I'll start with Robert Chirabo. Good morning.
Oh, bonjour.
You want to embarrass me?
Habari?
Because I can't speak French.
Okay, habari.
Mazuri.
Okay. At least there's something you can say regarding the East African community. You know, every time I hear the name Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, he's one person who is very passionate about the East African community.
Yeah.
To see it live to its fulfillment and achieving its potential in terms of trade, in terms of placing itself on the global map. But yesterday, I was very touched when His Excellency talked about wetlands and encroaching on wetlands, because we are having challenges. Today it's just a minor pour, but should we have a little bit more rain, then you see how most of these areas are going to flood. Why? Because former water paths or waterways were either built on these reservoirs where the running water from the 7 hills of Kampala by then would go, have been occupied. So the issue of wetland should not only be something we just discuss and leave. But I also find a problem sometimes when His Excellency is speaking and he seems a lonely wolf, or other people don't buy into his ideas of vision, as to say. Now, when you talk about encroaching on wetlands, you find the educated, the people in government, the people in power, take over these wetlands.
Actually, they are the ones that are guilty of swamp reclamation.
Yes. Because let me tell you, an ordinary man getting money to have 30 Sino trucks full of maram, hardcore and all that, man, that is a lot of money. They don't have. The business community rarely goes in there. And sometimes that's why I find a mismatch.
And also the other thing you need to mention, Chirabo, is that yes, they could be having the money, but they also must have the connections that allow them to reclaim swamps, and come up with commercial buildings. Because when we're having a conversation with Simon Kasiat after that flood that we had last month around Forest Mall, he said some of these people are so guarded that we are, like our hands are tied. We are between a rock and a hard place. Because even when you deny, he says sometimes the licenses they get, they don't even know how they access them. But of course, that's a bigger conversation, because if Kampala Capital City Authority, that should be in charge or is in charge of giving these licenses, also says, my hands are tied, these people do what they want to do, and there is nothing I can do about it.
Let me just give you a quick one on this. The president came out and banned charcoal burning, mostly in parts of northern Uganda. But I was speaking to some officer, and he told me, Robert, a truck comes covered full body, you can't see the charcoal, it's inside. But when you try to stop that truck, someone in uniform properly with a gun is seated in front. So for you as an enforcer,
What are you going to
What
do?
are you going to do? So that's why I say that he has the right vision for this country. He has where we're going, but he's a lonely wolf sometimes.
Well, good morning, Chantal Olive Akandinda.
Good morning, Olive. How are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well. You look lovely today.
Thank you.
I already told you are glowing. Something about today. I don't know what it is, but yeah.
It is a Tuesday, and it's the day after we got independence.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
feeling independent.
Oh, it's already a good week for you in Sonko's voice.
Yeah, in Sonko's voice, it's a beautiful week. But how is your morning
The
today?
morning is a bit chilly, and I'm just here to tell our dearest viewer that if you are planning on stepping out, of course you have to step out. Please do carry something to warm you up and prepare some tea as well. Don't make mistakes I wouldn't make. Welcome to the show.
And speaking of tea, by the way, we have tea that is produced, grown here, so you might as well think about consuming products that are locally made. Now, I know that people that love tea, like I do, also like to, consume the imported stuff. No problem, but also as you're doing that, look at some of the local products like Mukwano tea. This is not an ad, but I'm just saying buy Uganda and build Uganda. And of
Right.
course, if you love your coffee, please, 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 please consume Ugandan coffee, because we are the second exporters of coffee on the African continent. So
And
let us also consume what is ours.
And to add on to that, people have been consuming, there are brands I don't want to mention on TV that have different spices when it comes to coffee. I would like to assure Ugandans that we have people in this country that are producing more organic and good quality spiced tea. That is with cinnamon, with cardamom, with ginger, and all these other spices that you would like.
And they are all locally
They are
grown.
locally made and available. So when you go to the supermarket, please look for the Ugandan section. The teas that are Ugandan, support a fellow Ugandan to grow and we do better, because you're adding something to the growth of the country. Yeah.
Exactly, from the grassroots, from the people, from the tea growers to the last consumer, you're supporting someone, to that supermarket owner, grocery owner, or shop owner. You're supporting someone and you're growing and developing our economy. But anyway, that being said, let us right now take you into the news on the local scene.
And I want to begin with what happened yesterday as Uganda celebrated 61 years of independence. Now, President Museveni was the chief celebrant in Kitgum district where the function was held. The president encouraged Ugandans to ensure that we take full potential of the East African community and integration of Africa. The president also asked Ugandans to ensure that they move away from the habit of working in wetlands or encroaching on wetlands, which he said is a stumbling block for socio-economic transformation. President Museveni had earlier commissioned a new market in Kitgum district and welcomed the local government leadership. Local government minister Raphael Magezi said this will actually lead to the realization of the country's quest for value addition, especially on agricultural products.
Moving on to the NUP Prayer Day. Police has dispersed national prayers organized by Uganda's leading opposition party, that is the National Unity Platform. The organizers wanted to pray for NUP supporters alleged to be held in detention. The organizers of the prayers, who were roughed up by police at the NUP headquarters in Kamocha, a Kampala suburb, where the party secretary Davis General, I beg your pardon, where the party Secretary General David Louis Lubongoya and the party spokesperson Joel Senyonyi. However, NUP President Robert Chagulanyi, speaking at a media briefing at his Magere residence, revealed that a team of lawyers have been dispatched to establish the whereabouts of the arrested party members.
And moving on, a report by Communication for Development Foundation, Uganda, revealed that over 23,000 teenagers got pregnant in Lango during the lockdown. Most times when girls get pregnant, even at an early age, they are forced to get married. In 2023, government in its plan of having at least a seed secondary school in every sub-county across the country, commissioned 7 seed secondary schools in Lango sub-region. This presented an opportunity for learners, especially girls who had or might drop out of school due to difficult setbacks, including pregnancy, take advantage of this. And also it closed the long distance that was a problem as well, and also affordability.
And lastly, a delegation from the United Arab Emirates has arrived in Uganda to attend the second edition of the annual Uganda UAE Business Forum, due to take place on Tuesday in Kampala. The delegation, led by His Excellency Sheikh Shakbut Nahyan Al Nahyan, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, was welcomed by Zake Chibedi, the ambassador of Uganda to the United Arab Emirates. The main objective for the forum is to facilitate dialogue between the Ugandan government, business community, and the UAE government. The summit also seeks to mobilize private and public investments in priority sectors in Uganda by presenting the investment opportunities offered by the country to UAE investors.
Away from that, let's take a look at what is happening on the international scene. Rescuers are digging for survivors of a powerful earthquake that flattened whole villages in Afghanistan, killing more than 1,000 people. The 6.3 magnitude quake struck Saturday morning in Herat province, a barren landscape dotted with mud brick homes. Villagers are still using shovels and bare hands to search for more than 500 people missing, the UN says. Aid delayed by blocked routes and communication lines being down only started to trickle in yesterday. There are fears the death toll could be much higher. The quake hit Zindajan, a rural district 40 kilometers or 25 miles from the Herat city, where 100% of homes are estimated to have been completely destroyed. And this is according to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. And away from that, 12 Thais have been killed and another 11 kidnapped by Palestinian Hamas militants who launched a mass assault from Gaza on Israel. Another 8 Thai nationals have been injured in the violence since Saturday, said Thailand's foreign ministry. It said Air Force planes were on standby to fly its citizens home. There are some 30,000 Thais in Israel working in agriculture, many near the Gaza border. Nepal said 10 of its citizens had been killed. Other countries which have reported citizens killed, abducted, or missing in the violence in Israel include the US, the UK, and Germany. Thailand's Labour Minister Phiphat told AFP news agency that some 5,000 Thai laborers work in the zone where fighting has been taking place, but the Israeli forces had begun moving them to safety. He added that 1,099 workers have registered to return home. And in Kenya, a Kenyan High Court has blocked the government's plans to deploy police officers to Haiti or any other country pending the hearing of a petition. The judge cited issues raised in the application as being of national importance and public interest. One of the petitioners, former presidential candidate Ekuru Aukot, said the proposed deployment was unconstitutional. It is argued that there is a question mark over whether regular police can actually be deployed on international assignments. Mr. Aukot added the country could not afford to spare 1,000 officers before addressing insecurity at home. Last week, ethnic clashes in western Kenya left 7 dead. And recently, the coastal region of Lamu has seen attacks from the Somalia-based Al-Shabaab militant group. The area is now under curfew. Speaking on Sunday, the Interior Minister stressed that the deployment would not compromise the safety and security of the country. The court will issue further directions at the end of October. And speaking matters climate, the damage caused by the climate crisis through extreme weather has cost $16 million an hour for the past 20 years, according to a new estimate. Storms, floods, heat waves and droughts have taken many lives and destroyed parts of property in recent decades, with global heating making events more frequent and intense. The study is the first to calculate a global figure for the increased costs directly attributed to human-caused global heating. It found average costs of $140 billion a year from 2000 to 2019, although the figure varies significantly from year to year. The latest data shows $280 billion in costs in 2022. The researchers said lack of data, particularly in low-income countries, meant the figures were likely to be seriously underestimated. Additional climate costs, such as from crop yield declines and sea level rise, were also not included. That is it for what is happening on the international scene and also when you speak matters climate.
Well, thank you so much again for being a part of Good Morning Uganda. This is the day that the Lord has made, and I'm hoping that you're having a good morning. Now, here on Good Morning Uganda, we give you all the insights of the day, and this time round, we delve into the press review.
With me is a copy of the new vision, just the front page, and making sure that you know what you're going to find. Museveni warns soldiers, leaders on cattle theft. And still speaking matters, independence, 42 get medals, senior 2 dropout makes car. All that in today's copy of the new vision. And then also speaking matters, family, First Lady tips young couples on marriage. And away from that, cabinet okays law on real estate dealers. All that and more in today's copy of the new vision. Also, speaking matters, transport, trucks, motorists stuck as Sezibwa Bridge breaks down. Full story is in today's new vision. And oil drilling work at Kingfisher oil field halted over safety, and internationally oil prices soar as Hamas attack on Israel sparks war. That and so much more in today's copy of the new vision. So please do grab yourself. But later we will be taking a look at what is happening in the Daily Monitor and also on the press review when it comes to the East African community. Stay with us.
All right, like Chantal said, stay with us. And as you stay with us, I'd love for you to note that we were warned by the Uganda Meteorological Authority that we will have beyond normal rainfall. What does that mean? It means that we may have days where the rain is way too much. And how do you help yourself? By ensuring that you're warm, so carry warm clothing at all times. Have a sweater, have a jacket, a rain jacket, an umbrella, you know. And as you're driving, especially in the morning when it's a bit dark, you need to be careful because the roads tend to be slippery when it is raining. I like to ask Chirabo how he maneuvers when it rains because unlike some of us, he is a rider. How do you do it?
There are so many things that a rider or a biker has. The number of jackets that you can have specifically for people on motorcycles. So it's all about saving a few pennies because they're somehow expensive and get the professional, the quality that is deserved. So I'm not any different from you. The only thing that maybe sometimes I could step down, but when I'm on that machine and I have the right attires, I'm good to go just like that.
Wow, interesting. Also interesting is how someone decides to be a rider and not, you know, drive a car. Like how? You know, Chantal, does that make sense to you?
Let me tell you.
It actually does.
If
I were a guy,
think just like
best
too much
believe
comfort.
I would own a bike.
But
if I were a guy, I would own a bike.
Why if you were a guy, you remember there is a lady, I forget her
the
name,
president
the one
of the
that
Uganda
had
Bikers
dreadlocks?
Association.
Yes.
The president, current president,
is a lady.
she's a lady.
See?
And she drives, I think, about 1,000 cc, which I even fear because that thing runs. Yeah. And we have many female bikers, even in our Gaba riders. I think we have 3 of them. And fun enough, they ride bigger machines than
the
even
guys.
us.
But let
the
me tell you
guys.
something. When a woman decides to do something, she's most likely going to do it even better or bigger than the normal that you have seen.
First time I saw a woman on Ayabusa, okay, some
Big bike.
I was
yes.
like, Jesus, I can't even dare, this thing kills. But she was comfortable. We rode from Kampala to Mbale, Sipi Falls in one day, and this lady, none of us could even overtake her. I was
Wow.
like, fear women.
Actually, yeah, fair women who do things that are predominantly known to be done by men.
Yes.
And like Chantal said, most times when a woman decides to put her mind onto something, especially something that is deemed out of her league, she's going to prove above and beyond that she can do it and even leave you with some change. But anyway, so it is raining. You need to take care of yourself. You need to avoid places where if you see it is flooding and you can't see the road properly, please do not attempt to pass there or cross, because A, water could take you, or B, there could be an open manhole that you don't know about and we end up losing you. We do not want that to happen to you. But also, the people who reclaim swamps, this is a message for you. You need to think about our environment, and of course NEMA itself, we need to have a conversation, because the scapegoating and the excuses has to end somewhere, right?
I think the biggest thing here is not even with NEMA. The thing is, people who do things with impunity because they're either using money or connections. When you go to NEMA, they'll be honest, would no longer issue permits for any development in a wetland. But someone will deploy and work is continuing. Now a poor Chirabo working with the NEMA in charge of enforcement will come with a double cabin. The environment police will come there and they just gamba nogu. And of course you have to drive very majestically and go away.
When you say gamba nogu, you seem to be, apportioning this blame
no,
to a
because
certain kind.
it's a saying that someone came up with,
Okay.
and it was a person in authority.
Okay.
That someone gives you a phone and tells you, talk to this one.
Oh, yeah.
Now the person you talk to may be way above you.
That's
and
true.
just says, you know what,
Do as I say.
leave them. Don't, and it's simple, leave them. So the problem killing our country is not institutions failing.
It
But
is
it's because we have people.
impunity.
How do you be a doctor? You went to school. You did urban planning. But now yenga wasoma. Then you go to this wetland. I have no problem with these people in Yams, Mayuni, Abalima. But land people. That's where I doubt. What are, you see, these people who say we learned PhD what have done more harm than good to this nation. Some of them.
People who have PhDs and masters are
Talent
called
people,
stray bullets. But anyway, we will take a short break and we are going to leave you with the inspiration song of the day, and that is More Blessings by Levickson. We'll be right back to have a conversation regarding many things, among those the way of teaching in our schools, and later on we will talk about the usage of illicit drugs among the youth. Stay tuned. Today is the 10th of October 2023. Good morning, Uganda, and thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, here with Chantal Olive Akandinda and Chiraba Robert Nyonyintono. Now, yesterday, Uganda was commemorating its Independence Day celebrations, and of course, the events took place in Kitgum district, where President Museveni, as the chief celebrant, said Ugandans. He basically reiterated his message that he has been spreading all through this year, where he again discouraged the export of raw materials outside the country and encouraged the export of finished products, but also decried wetland encroachment, and also he did have kind words for people that get themselves involved in corruption. So that was his message, and he was very stern about this. Lots of things happened as many people also received medals yesterday from the president on the Independence Day. But of course, around the world, a lot of events are happening. There is a war right now going on in some parts of Palestine and Israel. We will delve deeper into some of these issues, but for now, let me check on my co-hosts, and I'll start with Robert Chirabo. Good morning.
Oh, bonjour.
You want to embarrass me?
Abari?
Because I can't speak French.
Okay, Abari.
Missouri.
Okay. At least there's something you can say regarding the East African community. You know, every time I hear the name Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, he's one person who is very passionate about the East African community.
Yeah.
To see it live to its fulfillment and achieving its potential in terms of trade, in terms of placing itself on the global map. But yesterday, I was very touched when His Excellency talked about wetlands and encroaching on wetlands, because we are having challenges. Today it's just a minor pour, but should we have a little bit more rain, then you see how most of these areas are going to flood. Why? Because former water paths or waterways were either built on these reservoirs where the running water from the 7 hills of Kampala by then would go, have been occupied. So the issue of wetland should not only be something we just discuss and leave. But I also find a problem sometimes when His Excellency is speaking and he seems a lonely wolf, or other people don't buy into his ideas of vision, as to say. Now, when you talk about encroaching on wetlands, you find the educated, the people in government, the people in power, take over these wetlands.
Actually, they are the ones that are guilty of swamp reclamation.
Yes. Because let me tell you, an ordinary man getting money to have 30 Sino trucks full of maram, hardcore and all that, Phil, man, that is a lot of money. They don't have. The business community rarely goes in there. And sometimes that's where I find a mismatch.
And also the other thing you need to mention, Chirabo, is that yes, they could be having the money, but they also must have the connections that allow them to reclaim swamps, and come up with commercial buildings. Because when we're having a conversation with Simon Kasiat after that flood that we had last month around Forest Mall, he said some of these people are so guarded that we are, like our hands are tied. We are between a rock and a hard place. Because even when you deny, he says sometimes the licenses they get, they don't even know how they access them. But of course, that's a bigger conversation, because if Kampala Capital City Authority, that should be in charge or is in charge of giving these licenses, also says, my hands are tied, these people do what they want to do, and there is nothing I can do about it.
Let me just give you a quick one on this. The president came out and banned charcoal burning, also in parts of northern Uganda. But I was speaking to some officer, and he told me, Robert, a truck comes covered full body, you can't see the charcoal, it's inside. But when you try to stop that truck, someone in uniform properly with a gun is seated in front. So for you as an enforcer,
what are you going to
do? So that's why I say that he has the right vision for this country. He has where we're going, but he's a lonely wolf sometimes.
Well, good morning, Chantal Olive Akandinda.
Good morning, Olive. How are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well. You look lovely today.
Thank you.
I already told you you are
Byananda ebyebika ebisatu omuli Miracap, tilapia oba engege ni catfish twete male. Group eno twatandika twali abantu basatu nga tulingirira obwetaavu obwebyenanda obo bwiva eno okubona nti tufuna okasente akava mu maadi agali gatambula butambule nga gatubita ku wanu ng'ekirabo. Twatandika ni fish pond ndala mu mwaka gw'2018 twebaza fisheries officer ni district ya Bugiri babanga batulagirira kusani fish farm ebwikwe ni side day ndeyo twabanga tusobola okufuna kwetusaako obugege obwasooka era mu mwaka ogwali 2020 awo basobola okubanga batuwaayo ebyenanda emitwalo dali ena okuva mu operation werese creation era okuba yongereza ku emmere yatuweebwa okuva Uganda Poultry Breeders. Twasobola okubanga tusoloza akasente akawerera obukaire nga 42. Twasobola okubanga tubuinvestinga oba okubona nti twongerezaako ku bimu ku bintu bye tukola gano bebaza gavumenti yaife okubanga buli saawa efaayo okubanga efeeri y'Abannayuganda.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
It is 6 minutes past the hour of 7. Good morning once again. If you're just joining us, my name is Olive Monica Nejuma, and I am here with Robert Chirabo and of course Chantal Olive. And we are saying again that this is a beautiful day, so make it worth your while by doing what's most so that you can change your future. They say that to change your future, you start today, that the activities that you do to change your future are supposed to start in your present. But we are not here to speak about the future. We are here to speak about schools. And of course, private schools are on the spot for opening and closing early. Normally, they have their, and I quote, they have their own calendars that they follow. And this is according to an executive from the Ministry of Education and Sports. It is reported that private schools usually have their own dates that are different from the dates that have been given to by the Ministry of Education to open schools when the term is supposed to begin. And of course, they decide when they should close their term, and in most cases their term ends earlier than the given date by the government. So we are here this morning to ask the question, why? Why do they do this? And of course, as citizens and parents, how do we contribute to this behavior and how do we move forward? Those and more are some of the questions that we are asking this morning, and would like for you to be a part of this conversation by joining us through WhatsApp. And of course, on the X app on WhatsApp, the number where you can text us your views and your opinions and your questions is 0709602592. And if you are on the X app, the hashtag is UBCGMU. So please be a part of this conversation from the start. Would like to hear from you. Now, to begin with, I'll go to Robert. And of course, the main question here is, why does the Ministry of Education set a date or a calendar for when schools should start operation and when the term should close?
Well, thank you so much. I must say this is an interesting topic because parents, most of the times, have felt the pain, and sometimes they literally nothing they can do. Now, first we must understand why does the Ministry of Education and Sports come up with what we call an education calendar of a year. Now, we believe, apart from the international schools,
Yes.
that all schools in Uganda follow a syllabus. That's why they all sit what we call national examinations. That is under UNEB. That government and or the Ministry of Education knows that this is what must be covered in a certain period during a learner's stay in school. That is why people have gone to PTCs or teacher training colleges. One thing, there is a word they call lesson plan. They prepare. In teaching, everything is well streamlined. That if it is a P1, first term, a learner must study this. Second term, a learner must study this. Third term, a learner must study this. And now experts in the ministry know that maybe each lesson will go for 45 minutes. So everything is well designed. One, to ensure there is a time when a learner must rest. 3 months of learning, then maybe they come back. Of course, now holidays are being shorter. But then they come back and have a time to rest. Then they have a time when they'll be back to school. Nationwide, now, work without play makes Jack. That is a common saying. So Ministry of Education wakes up and says, first term will begin on February, this date, knowing that the children have had maybe 2 months of resting. For December, there have been another class. Third term has been hectic for them because it was a promotional term. Now let them relax, let them rejuvenate, let them, above all, mingle with their colleagues, with their families, because I told you to bring up a fully fledged packaged human being. There are 3 schools. There is home. Let them have time in a school called home.
Yes.
There is community. Let them have time with the community. Then the other school is where they go and have the formal education. Now, the ministry knows that these 2 schools are very important. And I want to tell you, some people become problematic even when they grow because they have either missed the school called family, it's not been part of their lives, or community, they don't know how to socialize. You know, someone, they used to be driven from Namagunga or Gayaza or from
Back
Budo
to the
or
gate
Sing
in Muyenga.
or St. Mary's Chitende, Ondeje, back to a gate in Muyenga. There is
And then
mommy,
after-
daddy, and 2 siblings.
Or even no siblings.
Or even no siblings. Now, that person, because they have not interacted with the community, some are loners, some are hard to deal with. A simple joke sets them off because they missed mingling with the community. Now, ministry knows that this is very fundamental. So they set this calendar that the children will have a time to rest, then they will have a time to study. And I want to tell you, even time per every lesson is well stipulated by Ministry of Education and Sports. What should be covered in a term, how long a lesson should be, and when you go to, I'm sorry to use this, but when you go to traditional schools, you'll find they follow that and they still pass and excel. Now, they know when you should break off and how long you should be. So, that is why ministry emphasizes these children are being overworked. Then ministry comes out and says, but even when you cut them short, you're still cheating the parents. Or they wonder, how did you manage to cover this in this short of a time? You either pumped these kids with a lot of information,
Or you didn't give them what they're supposed to
or
get.
you didn't give them. Because if you open early and close early, that means there's some period maybe. So how have you been able to cover the syllabus?
No, someone may say, what if someone says that we opened early and closed early because what was supposed to be covered was covered earlier on?
Unfortunately,
What
their
would you say to that argument?
their early opening cannot cover up. This is what they usually do. They either open a week or 2 because they need money. Then after they will see that food is, then they close early. So there's either they are pampering our children with so much That's why you find a child as if he or she is a backpacker with a bag.
Yeah, I know
wonder.
some schools
And
where
maybe
you
soon they'll
find
develop
children
even
with
back
very heavy
problems.
back.
And you're like, are you going for a trip? Are you going for a camping anywhere?
All right, so Chantal, what do you think are the main reasons why private schools open and close early?
I believe it's a precedent that has been there and caused by the fact that they look at it as a way of being more organized, if I may put it like that. And then if I open early, definitely I'm going to close early, because if I've opened before you don't expect us to do things at the same pace. You get it? So if I open the first week of say October and you open the second or third week of October, what I would have covered by the time you close or by the time I close is close to the same. And also, should we really be concerned about the early opening and the early closing, or should we be concerned about the results that are being got from these schools?
Okay.
Well, should I chip in there?
Please.
Okay, well, why we should be concerned, one, first, we are looking at this child's ability to take in. Ministry, using experts, did a proper survey and came up that a child for this period can take in this much. Now, when these schools open early, the issue is most of the private schools are run on loans that they have to service.
Right.
So, when you're opening, when a term begins, parents pay, and some will at least drop something. So they want to get that money very fast. So they will tend to open a week before or 2 weeks before. Now, what they do, they even put beginning of term. And they tell you if your child doesn't come, beginning of term contributes 15%. So you have to work hard to ensure this child comes for these exams. That first week is usually exams, nothing much like teaching. But beginning of term, no teaching really to me. Then, as these other schools reopen, they're also now seemingly opening the same. Now, they want to tap money. But remember, even if they never had a beginning of term, and they want to be able to close very early, because what happens, as the term continues, goes on, why many of them close early, the reality is saving on expenses. Food, for example, other utilities used in school. So when you close early, that's why they'll tell you, go back home, come for reports on the official day. You know, they bring your children a week or two their home, then they tell you a day to go. So they're simply saving on their expenditure. Now, if we believe that they are opening early, but they are going to cover what these other children would, what those that opened on the official date, this is the challenge then. For you to be able to close early, this is what happens. You have to give these children more. That's why you find most of the private schools, the children that come out of there, and please don't take offense of what I'm going to say. I went to a traditional school, my senior 1 and senior 2, and Ndeje Senior Secondary School. But we had children who would come from these well-known private schools. Now, these children were used to being pampered. When we came to this school, it was self-drive. Preps, you have to revise. For them, they knew preps, a teacher is teaching you. You get it? Now, I had an average that at the end of the term, or year, you must have 50 as your average. They would chop these children because they're used to cram work,
that came in with
pampering,
force.
that came in with force. They didn't have anything to do with self-drive. They're used to a teacher being in class monitoring with a stick. Us, it was very organized. So they tend to overwork the brain of this child so that they can save on the money, and they can also get the money at the entry very quick to keep on servicing their loans and end them very fast. So it is more, there are more disadvantages actually to your child. Parents, you may not look at this. Today don't see your children education.
But then again, Robert, when you listen to, there's a gentleman called Mr. Chirabira. Now, I used to interact with Mr. Chirabira from like 2021. And he's the head of private schools, private institutions association, national something, NIPER. And according to what he says, some of the reasons as to why they are forced to close early especially are because the taxes that are there cannot enable them run a full term properly. That is for some of the private schools. The other reason cited is that the parents also delay to pay school fees. Please do note that these private schools especially are not aided by government at all. So they are dependent on the school fees that is paid by parents. But also do remember that not every parent pays all the money in full. And that's why we're seeing all these struggles happening here and there. The private schools trying their level best to make sure that they stay in business, but also provide good quality education. And you will agree with me that private schools are doing way better than government schools in providing good quality education.
When you speak about good quality education, what exactly do you mean? Because many Ugandans right now are of the view that what we call good quality education is mainly grades. That you take your child there in P7 and you're expecting 4 aggregates. But Chirabo has already mentioned that in his former school, and I've had this being thrown around sometimes, that these children will come with 4s, but then when they are mixed with children from other schools, maybe after they have transitioned into a different level of education, let's say O level, that they cannot compete, they cannot compare. So when you say good quality education, are we really talking about you know, an education that gives these children the skills to be integrated into, you know, like real life, or we are just mentioning grades that you got 4, you got 8 in 8, you got 20 points? What do we really mean by good quality education?
In this particular case, to be honest, in this particular case, we are talking grades. That is the truth. And if you're to go to these private schools, the first thing they're going to front is grades. Because the first line of taking you to school, you're looking at grades and someone... This is how our education system is structured.
Exactly, and now that brings me
I
to
think
the
you are
other...
getting, and that's the problem that you
Exactly, I'm coming to that. That brings me to the other point, because as a country, should we really be worried? I know grades are important, because as a parent, I don't expect my child to bring me F9s, you get. But I also wonder, as a Ugandan, a citizen, and a parent, should our main concern be that my child got 4, or that my child really understood what was taught, and they can now integrate it into something that can actually take them from point A to point B?
Let me take you back to certain realities. And the first thing I want to tell you is that for a school that is private school, that is not producing good grades, the truth is even the Ministry of Education will start lowering its standard, will start looking at it as a low quality school. That is how our education system has been put. You cannot blame the private school owners, for example, for putting their main focus on grades, because that is how the system has been put in place. If we see from the top things changing, then maybe we will see these schools trying to integrate these things. The truth is, like Chirabo said, these kids are pumped with a lot of work. Even during prep time, they are reading. My primary school, we used to carry very heavy school bags. You had a dictionary in there, you had all these books in there, you had all these atlas, everything was in there. You find a child with who is slouching at a very young age because of the backpack. To a point that we had to get these backpacks that we would roll around. But not everyone could afford that. You get? So the education system has been structured to put main focus on grades. And that is where we have an issue. That is why you will see these schools only competing on the line of grades. That's what they have to offer, because that's what they're marked against.
And maybe just a quick one to supplement. You know, when my sister was talking about how we've defined our education system and how we are defining success, I felt like tears rolling down. I went to both a traditional and then also this other school, and I think both were top-notch schools. Now, we are having so many educated fools.
Say what?
We are having, I want to repeat this, so many educated fools because of what we've described, success in education. We are having many jobless people because of what we think. You know, you should not just go through school and pass. School should go through you. When we were young, they would even say, "Waisanga atasoma," because by then the education system looked at your mental, your physical, you know, your spiritual, all aspects. And forgive me, but today, that's why some traditional schools are still held in high esteem.
Right.
That even when a top private school produces newspapers publish, someone will still tell you, I'm not marketing, that Gayasa, Pudo. Mention those, you know,
because
the boys,
now,
the girls. Because,
exactly. Why? What?
Because for them,
what do they have?
they do not only look
At
at
grades.
grades, they look at character. They look at a whole
is rolling her
person,
eyes.
you know,
I
a
would
whole,
like to hear
and
her
they will
talk.
produce for you a person who knows timekeeping, who knows how to relate with others, who has discipline, who has now for this other, it is pass. And that is a danger. We must go back to the drawing board.
Okay, I think you're
I
being
want to
harsh
tell you,
here, Robert.
no, I'm not being harsh.
Is he? 'Cause
Today,
In
if
a
you
way.
have had a conversation,
We think, let me
with,
give you a simple
if you have
example.
had a conversation with our producer, our boss, he's a former.
Ugonian.
He's from that is Namiryango, and the way this gentleman speaks about his school days, I don't know how many years later, he says they were raising gallant men.
I had the president
men
of Media
valor.
Association, and he
Which
said,
private school do you know? I stand to be corrected. That has. Someone would say it produces gallant men of valor. It produces women of substance.
Okay, hear me out. I'm not disputing what is being said. But now for traditional schools, for example, it came with, it's more like how I would say, take your child to a Catholic school or Catholic inclined school or to a Muslim inclined school. They'll come with certain values. They'll come out with certain values. But this is because the fact that they are labeled traditional schools, it comes that we are going to look for these things. But look at these, some of the kids that have gone to private schools. If it's timekeeping, you cannot tell me that they went for preps a little later than those who are in traditional schools. That teaches timekeeping. If it's certain skills, you cannot tell me that all the time they were in school, they never went for sports. We have private schools that are in sports.
you have private schools that are in flats, in cubicles.
Okay, where they are situated is not the problem.
We have where for them element of religion, element of character, and at the end of the day, that is what we are describing as success.
But also,
going
I would
through
like
school
I would like to
and not school going through.
No, Robert, I would also look keenly at what Chirabo is saying. I won't name names, but there is a school a couple of schools like their sister schools along Masaka Road, and people who went to those schools say that our head teacher, he's now late, but they used to say he taught them certain values and he taught them certain disciplines. For instance, the boys were taught that you should always carry a hanky, that a man is supposed to be clean, that a man is supposed to speak this way or carry yourself like this, express yourself like this. So when you say that these things are only taught
In
by traditional schools, there is someone out there that might counter what you say.
No, but
and Chantal is pointing at her.
no, I can understand this. I told you I went to both schools,
Yeah.
and I feel so sad that what we've termed as success in our education system
Is
is
grades.
merely grades.
Okay.
I've seen very many, sometimes I try to control my tongue, very many educated, but education has not
learned.
gone through them. We are talking about encroachment. How, Gadala, you went through school and even did, are you a frog? What do you want? Should the president?
Doesn't that go back
There's certain
to,
things
doesn't that
we're talking
go
about
back
corruption.
to a person's character?
We
Because,
don't-
no, if you mention corruption, for instance, the senior leaders in this country that are involved in corruption,
Some
if
went
you
to the
go
traditional
back and
schools.
ask where they went to school, you're
Some
going
went
to
to
be
the
rudely
traditional schools.
surprised.
Yes, yes.
Some,
A few.
maybe,
Of course,
no,
there will always
maybe
there will always be
of
a
because
rotten
back in
tomato
the-
somewhere.
Why I
But
say
Cherabo, we need to have a level discussion where we are not just
Let's have some
apportioning
fairness.
blame.
okay,
Yes,
I'll
let's
allow
be
the
fair.
fairness. But what I'm saying, the key, the core value, what I'm bringing all this,
Yeah.
is we must change how we look at success in our education system. Not simply grades, but having a person having some values. Today, you have some people with very good grades. A person has not fared very well, but goes to a technical institution, you know, and these guys have come out as people who are job creators. Now, when we look at success, how many grades? And this is where even the topic we're discussing today, why some schools will open early
Yes.
is they need time to pamper,
To pump the
to
children
get
with
those,
so much content.
those grades they are yearning for. As Chantal will tell you, my child performed at P7, has a 4. Which school are you telling me? How did they perform the previous? Let me
Well, to a degree,
but
let
then
me
again,
give you an
which is
example. Robert,
which is also not that very
Robert,
bad.
listen. Someone we know Ivy League schools on the international level, like Harvard, like Stanford, like Oxford, and Cambridge, and we know that to get into these schools, your grades also have to be proper. So let's not really make it look like good grades are bad.
I'm not saying good grades
Maybe
are bad.
what we should say is that balance the grades
Yes.
and other values that you teach the children. But
Now-
we would like for you to have this conversation with us, and we would wish for you to share your views on the Education Ministry's move to stop early opening and closure of school terms. Share your views on the Education Ministry's move to stop early opening and closure of school terms. You can join this conversation through WhatsApp number 0709602592, and of course on the X app the hashtag is UBCGMU. I have a few views that have been coming through, and I would like to share some of those. Now this one says, please, I encourage you to add your name to your comment because we would like to know who we are talking to, and those calling, this number is strictly for messages, so please do not call. This one says, good morning, Uganda. To my own level of consciousness, I come to a conclusion that private schools do not waste time, therefore do their studying in time, and more also, on the other hand, private schools are more economical. And this one says, good morning, UBC. What I see, education in Uganda is all about business. You believe me or not, but it's a fact in the issue. That is Karim Kajansi. Thank you, Karim. And Apollo from Namisindwa says, Apollo from Namisindwa, and he's the director, Magali Royal Secondary School. I like this. He says, my comment on the research of that single directional thinking about money collection alone is not very satisfying to the public. Remember that without good performance and discipline in private schools, you lose out so early. Early opening and closing is for efficiency and competition to get students to school and perform. That is a view from a school director, and we appreciate you for sharing your view.
Competition and getting students.
Okay, and this one says, good morning, family. Schools always open up earlier just to complete syllabuses. They want to cover all what they had planned earlier, which at times is disadvantageous to students, whereby they give them beyond what their brains can carry.
Lovely.
Secondly, due to competition, some schools think opening up earlier, they stand a chance of getting new entrants because an early bird catches the worm. So commercially, it's beneficial to most schools. And this is from the one and only Cricket Derek Gagamel from Makindye Luafu. And this one says, thank you for the program. Private schools begin early and close early only to blindfold parents. The difference is the same. Not all government schools don't perform well. I like the ideas of the lady and the gentleman I'm listening from Fort Portal, but you did not leave us with your name. We would like to know your name so that Robert will send you greetings. Anyway, it is said that when we look at the numbers, it is said that 75% of secondary schools are actually private. And around above 40% of kindergarten are all private schools.
Yes.
And then primary school, what's the percentage? Anyway. The numbers are high. It shows that private schools have quite a huge market share when it comes to our education system. And like Chantal said, they have taxes they grapple with, and sometimes the money from parents doesn't come in early. That's why sometimes they are forced to close early. But now I have a question for you, Chirabo. The Ministry of Education and Sports is supposed to regulate schools. And from the look of things, and even from this Mr. Chirabira, the official from the Ministry of Education.
No, Nipea, he's from Nipea.
Sorry, no, it is Mr. Mlindwa.
Yes, Mlindwa.
From the Ministry of Education and Sports. He says private schools have their own calendar that they are following. And that begs for the question, does the ministry still have does it still have the right to regulate the activities of schools, especially private schools?
I'm going to be very quick on this. I just want to give you a small background to education in this country and why we are where we are, and the ministry sometimes happens to back and not bite. Now, the history of education in this country, like my sister earlier said, began by church missionaries. Then we had the Muslims. Those are the religious founded. No wonder some people say that our colonial masters were training people who would help them in administration. Now, there was nothing to do with commercial. Then later we had community schools where Chantal, Olive, and I come from Rashamaire or wherever. And now we wake up and we are like, we are able to get Rashamiri, and we were able to get education. Let's go back and construct a what? A school to educate for the community. Now, this school was never to make money, but to ensure that the
community
grows and they also benefit from education.
Yes.
Now, hell broke loose when we commercialized that now people begin schools. Someone tell you,
but when you say hell broke loose, Robert,
that's what I'm going. Yes, the problem started.
The private sector.
Let me just drive my point.
Contributed
the problem started.
Okay.
When people began commercialization of education with the limited guidance from the ministry.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You know?
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Yeah. With the limited. We brought in something good, but we didn't direct it properly. That's why you find a fisherman, a director of a secondary school. You find a what? And I'm not saying that is offensive, but we had to look at it properly.
As I was actually going to say.
Who really starts a school? What do you go through to start a school? Now, ministry is now faced with a challenge that there is so much that has gone under the carpet that to put it right, it is hard. Then it also has a challenge of conflict of interest. That's why one time they'll talk about regulating school fees. The PS will issue a circular saying Ministry of Education has guidelines if you're to increase school fees. Another way of this, you even have to write and the ministry must approve. The parents, is it teachers committee, something, must approve. You must have a meeting. And that's figure is agreed by the parents' representatives and even give reasons why you want to increase school fees.
Right.
The ministry has come to, when has it ever worked? And who does it? The children are going to have their holidays and they will come back with a circular now next term.
Actually, we witnessed this after COVID-19 when schools, resumed. And for most schools, there was like 100% school fees increment. And some of them, of course, the ministry said no school should increase school fees. But some of these schools, what they did, they hid it under development fees, different costs, but bringing the total to a good sum of money. And in others, in third term, you're picking your child, you get the circular, no communication prior, and there is an increment. So you have to find yourself, do I go back to this school? Do we change the school? And the parents find themselves at a point where they are between a rock and a hard place. I want my child to stay in this good school, but also there is the money challenge. So my question again, maybe to Chantal, and both of you can answer. Do parents also contribute to the way these schools behave when it comes to increment of school fees? Because if they just increase fees and the parents through their PTA are not even against it, they do not call for an explanation and just pay. Aren't you enabling the schools? We are out of time, so I would like for you to take...
Let me make it very quick.
Okay.
One, if the regulator seems that their hands are tight, then what about the parents? The parents are just helpless because a person will tell you, this is my school. You either afford
Or you
Or you
can't.
go.
or you can't. Cut a cloth, cut
According
a coat
to-
according to your piece of cloth.
Yes.
So the ministry must bite. This may not take effect because precedent has shown us that there is so much the ministry has come up with and it has failed to enforce, to implement, because these are private entities.
I know, and like we were giving percentages, 100% of nursery schools
Are private.
47% of learners in primary are private. 75%
Of secondary.
secondary, private. How do you regulate that? That is, if it's goals, it's like 1-0. Just saying.
I sold
no,
my
it could
land,
be a
began a school, then you're
And
telling me
also,
I
please
should...
do note that some of these private schools are owned by some top people in the country.
So
Now,
the
that
parents'
as
role,
well.
that's what I'm looking
The
for.
parents' role, honestly speaking, if 5 of us came up and tried to boycott, and there is like 10 who can afford that money, do you
Yeah.
think the school is going to actually listen to you, the 5? No. The fact that there are people who can accommodate, who can afford that money, and there are people who be like, they've increased. That means services are going to improve. Let me take my child there.
Actually,
we have
people,
some of those
many
people who are
pe-
like that.
Oh, wow. Anyway, time is of the essence, and this has been such a beautiful discussion. We thank you so much for your views that have come through. Thank you, Asimwe Constance from Fort Portal, for your view. And of course, I will close with 2 comments. Good morning, Uganda. Private schools use examination curriculum, not the education curriculum, so they are free to close early. Wow. So what are they using? Which curriculum are they using? Because the last I checked, if you are under the Ministry of Education and Sports and you're teaching the local curriculum, you must follow what the Education Ministry gives you. And this one says, good morning, UBC. This is Bridges Wamono from Namisindwa. I just appreciate the efforts and courage you're putting across the nation about education stand. Thanks. And Engineer Wambuzi Pade says, thanks for that bright discussion. I've been wondering how schools back here take lots of time with students and results are minimal compared to Western countries, yet their results are manifest. For instance, we take forever at school and thereafter someone cannot put work at what they did learn. I'll close with this comment from Engineer Pade, and what he's trying to say is, we spend so much time in school, and yet when it comes to being in the labor force, in most cases, we cannot transplant what we learned from school into the job market. Most times I've trained people, and sometimes you find someone is fresh from campus, they're in the media, and they have to train them once again, yet they've been at campus for 4 years. Make that make sense. This is still Good Morning Uganda. My name is Olive Monica Najima. We will take a short break. When we come back, we'll have the GMU Business Review, traffic updates, and later on, agenda.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
MTN Momo Pay is the easy way to pay. Dial *165*3# or use the MTN Momo app. You don't need cash. MTN Momo Pay is safe and free.
Mukoke Fish Farmers Association tuli balunzi ba byananda ebyebika ebisatu omuli Miracap, tilapia oba engege ni catfish tetwete male. Group eno twatandika twali abantu basatu nga tulingirira obwetaavu obwebyenanda obw'obwivwa n'okubona nti tufuna okasente akava mu maadi agali gatambula butambule nga gatubita ku wano ng'ekirabo. Twatandika ni fish pond ndala mu mwaka gw'e2018. Twebaza fisheries officer ni district ya Bugiri babanga batulagirira ku Sun Fish Farm ebwikwe ni side day dindeyo. twabanga tusobola okufuna kwetuusaako obugege obwasooka era mu mwaka ogwali 2020 awo basobola okuba nga batuwaayo ebyenanda emitwalo $40 okuva mu operation wealth creation era okuba ayongerezaako emmere yatuweebwa okuva Uganda Poultry Breeders. Twasobola okuba nga tusoloza akasente akawerera obukayire nga 42. Twasobola okuba nga tubuinvestinga oba okubona nti twongerezaako ku bimu ku bintu bye tukola gano. Twebaza gavumenti yaife okuba nga buli saawa efaayo okuba nga efeeri y'Abannayuganda.
Uncle, you should see London.
Oh, my boy. This has been 5 years. You should see Uganda.
Yes. Uncle Marcus, huh? That's my former school.
Soon there will be more than 1 million children learning like this for free.
Thank you, Uganda, for imagining it with us and making us the fastest growing telecom in the country over the past 5 years.
You are still watching Good Morning Uganda on UBC Television. It's time for us to take a look at what is happening in the business world. Now, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank are to hold first meetings in Africa in 50 years. Do you know what that means for Africa? Let's take a look and see how that goes. Now, the International Monetary Fund and World Bank began talks in Morocco yesterday in their first annual meetings on African soil in 50 years. Now, this is now under pressure to reform to better aid poor nations blighted by debt and climate change. The International Monetary Fund and World Bank traditionally hold their annual gathering of finance ministers and central bank governors outside their Washington headquarters every 3 years. Now, the southern Moroccan city of Marrakesh was supposed to host it in 2021, but the gathering was postponed twice because of the COVID pandemic. Now, a powerful earthquake that killed nearly 3,000 people in the region south of Marrakesh last month threatened to derail the event again, but the government decided it could go ahead. And the country has gone through a very tough time. Just a month ago, the International Monetary Fund Managing Director, this is Georgieva, said she opened a panel discussion titled Africa Inspired. But it came out of it more united, more resilient, said Georgieva, who earlier visited school children in the Atlas region whose schools were destroyed but were now back in class or in temporary facilities. The IMF and World Bank last held their meetings in Africa in 1973 with Kenya when Kenya hosted the event, and some nations were still under colonial rule, including Uganda, by the way. No, Uganda was already independent by then. Half a century later, the continent faces an array of challenges ranging from conflict to series of military coups to unrelenting poverty to natural disasters. We're here. Africa Georgieva said at the panel discussion featuring 3 women entrepreneurs from the continent, it was of course right that we would look for inspiration coming from the incredible young women on this continent, she said. Now, talk about lending boost. Now, tougher discussions await officials at the meetings this week. In a symbolic move, the International Monetary Fund and World Bank are poised to give Africa a 3rd seat on their executive boards, which Georgieva has said would give the continent a stronger voice. But the thorniest issues revolve around money. Like we all do know, most African countries are grappling with poverty, grappling with the debt. And well, the main contributors are not in favor of a capital increase, as it would force them to put up more funds and would give greater influence to emerging powers such as China and India. That and so much more we expect to be getting from this meeting that last happened 50 years ago. So let's see how that goes at the end of the day. Now, still speaking matters business, yeah? Uganda has always been the outlier when it comes, when it got serious and got down to work. Now, this country also seriously self-sabotages on a scale that is shocking, as the 16 years between 1970 and 1986 showed. So Uganda's impressive growth would even be more impressive if it improved on project implementation and stemmed an astonishing rise in population. There was a report that showed that of 42 core projects under the NDP2, that is 2015, 2016, 2019, 2020, only 2 had been completed on time. Do you know what that means for a country like Uganda? Maybe yes, maybe not. So our leaders claim to be disciples of Lee Kuan Yew, the failure which some say is deliberate at forcing overpaid firms to implement public projects on time is baffling. They concentrate on concerns of Heart Parish priest in Chikube, slept with which Christopher, but fall asleep when discussions on why all road infrastructure leading into Kampala has crumbled and why we talk regional integration and Pan-Africanism but cannot repair the 91-kilometer Masaka-Mutukula highway. Well, that and so much more when you talk about things that are affecting our country. Well, at the end of the day, the graph that you see on your screen right now, that was, Uganda was, I mean, when you talk about the period of 1971 to 1980, you look at what I'm talking about, the numbers right there on that graph. And maybe if we had a robust procurement regime, including direct procurement for critical infrastructure such as bridges and rail and some roads, yeah, maybe a few hospitals. By robust, we are talking about trying as much as possible to avoid Entebe's recruitment gurus who have the uncanny ability to choose the worst of the worst every time, from the junk choppers of 1998. Well, when you take a look at that graph, you will understand what I am talking about. Well, that's pretty much it when we are talking about, when you talk about business. But let's see how we were trading, yeah? Let's see how we were trading as of closure of business yesterday, Monday. And if I'm looking correctly, the US dollar opening was at 3,739, and that is buying also, and then selling at 3,749. By midday buying at 3,740, selling at 3,750, closing at 3,742, and selling at 3,752. Now the Great Britain pound closing at 4,555, selling at 4,567. The euro closing at 3,900 at 3,942 if you are buying, and closing at 3,953 for you who is selling. The Kenya shilling closed at 25 shillings, selling at 25 shillings as well. The Tanzanian shilling closing at 1 shilling and selling at 1 shilling. And of course, when you talk about the South African rand, if you are buying, you would be buying it at 191. That is by closure of business yesterday. And if you are selling, you would be selling at 191 as well by closure of business yesterday. Well, that's it for the business news, but let's take a look at what is happening when it comes to the papers, the press review in the country and across East Africa. Let's start with the East African. Yeah, now the East African goes from 7th to 13th of October. So that means you are finding all that in here matters. East African, AFCON in East Africa. No room for games. That is the headline right there. 4 parties back Kagame's bid. That is what is happening in Rwanda. And in Tanzania, Tanzania seeks 1.8 billion for SGR. Also, if you go ahead to look at what is in the East African, you're looking at Haiti mission may face funding hitch. Then games soccer bosses play with the boys. Then money are flush with cash, SMEs a good sign. That and so much more in the East African. Do not, it goes from 7th to 13th of October, and that is why you have it running even today. Now, moving away from that, let's take a look at what is happening in Kenya. Yeah, with me is a copy of the Daily Nation, and we are taking a look at what is. Pardon me. With me, I have a copy of the Daily Monitor. Yeah, with me is a copy of the Daily Monitor, and we are taking a look at what is happening in the country. Now, girls to get birth control, and girls to get birth control from age 15. That is according to a new plan. Museveni sends rustling cartels a warning shot. This is as of the Daily Monitor. Now, government decentralizes medical boards to ease travel abroad and retirement. Also, if you are looking for tenders in here, you do have Royal Danish Embassy, URA, World Vision, among others. Then Israel now imposes total siege on Gaza after the attack. That is what is in today's copy of the Daily Monitor. But when I cross over and check what is happening in Tanzania, I'm taking a look at the Citizen right here. 2 Tanzanians missing in Israel-Hamas conflict. Also, media campaign to focus on Mwinyi's 3 years in office. And then what new strategic cooperation between Tanzania and India means. Also, challenges doctors, carers face in mental health hospitals. That is what is briefly in today's papers when you talk about East Africa in general. That is it for the paper, for the press review. And of course, Olive Monica Najuma is here to let you know where you will be able to pass and what you should prepare yourself for in terms of traffic.
Thank you so much for keeping it Good Morning Uganda. Now we delve into the traffic highlights for this morning, and if you're coming from the areas of Weyogere, if you're coming from areas along the Jinja Kampala Highway coming through Chireka, this roundabout you're seeing on your screen is the Northern Bypass roundabout right around Chireka, coming from areas of Nalia and joining the main roundabout here. Now, as you continue to the areas of Chireka, you're going to find that right after the roundabout, there is traffic over there. The red zones are quite plenty around here. We are going to look at the traffic on the main road, but also the traffic in the back ways within Chireka itself. Now, from the roundabout, from the bypass, roundabout, you're going to find that there is traffic from there, and then there is some bit of traffic that is coming in from Namgongo Road, joining the main Kampala Jinja Highway. Earlier on, before I came on air, I was watching, and this route that comes in from Namgongo had plenty of traffic, but now it has let up. So if you are about to hit the road, this is the best time. The hold up that was on Namgongo Road joining the Kampala Jinja Highway has let up. Actually, even the traffic on the main Kampala Jinja Highway around this section has let up, because earlier when I was keeping track, it was quite intense. Now, if you're coming from Kamuli Road, there is a bit of a traffic build-up as you join the main Kampala Jinja Highway, but still, it is not so much to worry about the way it was earlier. Now, if you are, of course, getting off the main Kampala Jinja Highway to cross over to Chireka Road, there is still the traffic has let up. This is really good news, because I was worried about the people that are, trying to join this section of the road to go through Chinawataka, because at first the red zones were quite plenty. Now, looking around the back ways in Chireka, looking at Chireka Road, actually the traffic has let up right now. There is a bit of a build up in some areas, but nothing to worry about, so you should be able to move. But now, as we still continue along Chireka Road, I see a deep red zone on both sides of the road. That is for people that are going to Chireka and those people that are coming from Chireka. This red zone goes on actually for quite some time. If you can't see there on your screen, this red zone keeps going and going until you reach sections that join you to Kagugube Road. There it starts to let up. I see Kezia Road, it is very smooth this morning, but Chireka Road has some bit of a build up there, which means it's not going to cost you so much time, like 30 minutes, but still you won't be able to move very fast. And now I see again a red zone just after Chireka Road continuing. This is the road now that takes you to Bugolobi side, and at the intersection where you find it, you're going to find that there is intense traffic there. But now going back to the main Jinja Kampala Highway, there is smooth traffic flow over here until you reach some points around Chambogo Road, that is in Banda. There you're going to find a huge red zone indicative of intense traffic in this area. So if you are traveling from Kampala, from Jinja to Kampala, you're trying to hit the business center, you're traveling from Chireka, you're traveling from Bweyogere, around this area you're going to find intense traffic, both coming from Chambogo Road, joining the main road, and of course on the main road, both sections of the road, both lanes of the road have intense red lines, meaning that people coming from Kampala going Jinja side and people coming from Jinja side going to Kampala are all stuck in traffic jam as of this morning. Now, when we reach the section around Spear Motors, there is a bit of traffic coming in from Ntinda Stretcher Road, but just where the intersection is, and of course looking at Nakawa Jinja Road, there seems to be good traffic flow, so you won't be held up there. But if you're continuing with the Kampala Jinja Highway to come to town, you're going to find that now the traffic flow is actually very smooth, apart from a little bit of traffic along Katalima Road as it joins the main Jinja Highway. Now continuing ahead, still around the main Jinja Highway, you're going to still find sections of traffic, sections of smooth traffic flow, and again sections of traffic. Now when we look at the road that comes from Luzira, still around Nakawa Business Park, there is smooth flow of traffic, so you won't lose time there, except when you reach the traffic lights. You may spend a few minutes there because of the lights, but as you continue ahead, you should be able to go. But around the areas of Lugogo, around Chadondo Rugby Grounds, there is some bit of traffic buildup. Actually, it is not just a bit, it is a huge red zone that has built up over there. So if you're going to Kampala, you are going to be held up a little bit. And of course, I see traffic coming through from Lugogo bypass joining the main Ginger Highway. But the rest of the main Ginger Highway looks quite okay. There is a bit of a hold up at the roundabout, the Ginger Road roundabout, but nothing much to worry about. There is a bit of traffic coming, up to Yusufule Road, but still it will take you up to Nile Avenue, a little bit of a hold up, but you should be able to continue wherever you're going smoothly. So Kampala Road looks quite smooth this morning. Parliamentary Avenue looks good. It is just King George the 6th Way that has traffic over there. And of course, if you're going to Colville Street, you may be delayed up because there is a deep red zone over there. Overall, when you look at Kampala Road, you should be able to get to where you're going in record time because there is smooth flow of traffic over there. Well, that's it for our traffic updates this morning. Thank you so much for always keeping it Good Morning Uganda, and thank you so much for always being on UBC, the national broadcaster. We bring you all the events live, and I'm sure yesterday you enjoyed the independence celebrations. Now coming up next is Agenda, and later on Ruben Mpima will give you the sports updates.
Of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
MTN Momo Pay is the easy way to pay. Dial *165*3# or use the MTN Momo app. You don't need cash. MTN Momo Pay is safe and free.
Amina gange ndetibona Kiranda Amina mu company Air Web Uganda Limited ndi member. Wemba member kampani eno weyeida twalinga tutuli bulungi ng'abakyala ab'ewakawaka. Ng'abakyala ab'ewakawaka tuemera ku baami baife nga bonkana abajamu nanda nga twidi nti abakyala tebakozesa ki nanda. UN Women weyeida yatuteekateeka yatwegesa okulunda engege ng'abakyala. Twatandika beno okudulunda n'okudiriisa n'okolaki. Twafunamu ng'abakyala aba Bugiri district. Abakyala ba Bugiri district sofa tuli abakyala 14 abakola project eya web. Abakyala 14 twayawula mu sectors. Mulimu abakyala ba production, abaliisa, mwaba abakyala ba validation, abongera engege omutindo bayongerako omutindo. Twaba n'abakyala ba harvesting, aba harvestinga. Twaba n'abakyala abakola aba marketing. Sector donna diri trained era didi kyedikola ki kyedikola. Project eno tufunyemu ng'abakyala. Government yaife ne Uganda njebaza okujja kujanga batulingirira mu ng'abakyala abana Uganda eri kujanga eturobingira ebibiina bingi. We have UWeb, baleta parish development model, we have myoga, byona biri kwida muki mu bakyala oba mu bantu abaki aba Uganda.
City market lies in 4 acres of land with a population of about 4,000 registered market vendors who are doing business in this facility. We really appreciate the initiative of the government to come up with this project that is benefiting not only the business community within the market, but the entire community within actually sub-region. When you look at the market previously, the market used to be not like this one. With the market vendors, they used to sell under papyrus reeds. And we used also to ferry our goods, come and sell, then you take it in the stores or elsewhere. But now, due to this infrastructural development, the vendors now, they are able now to sell, cover your goods, leave it there, and you come and get it the next day when it is safe. The safety of our goods and the convenience of doing business has improved greatly. That makes the local community very, very, very happy when they are doing business in the market now. I want to appeal to my fellow vendors and the community, of the entire Chile sub-region, that we need to embrace and support the government so that they continue also bringing us more development in our region.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
This week on UBC.
Welcome back to Good Morning Uganda. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, and this time round I am with a gentleman named Bill Bekunda. Now, Bill is a recovering addict, and he's also a recovery coach who by recovery and coaching, I mean that his main emphasis is on the youth that are dealing with substance abuse. And when we speak substance abuse, we are talking about alcohol, we are talking about drugs, we are talking about Uganda's youth dealing in illicit drugs. So what are the main factors that are causing this problem among our youth? Why are youth now more, prone to the usage of drugs, especially the school-going youths? Yes, it is said that Uganda's school-going youths, that is between the ages of 12 to 24, are actually more susceptible to the usage of drugs. Why is this? Which drugs are they taking? These are the questions we are asking today, and we'd love for you to be part of this conversation by joining us through WhatsApp number 0709602592. And if you are on the X app, the hashtag is UBCGMU. Now, according to research, it says that 60 to 71% of school-going children, that is 12 to 24 years, use addictive substances, especially alcohol, which is at 19.3%, and of course Cuba, which is smokeless tobacco, which is used sublingually at 4.4%. These and more substances are being used, and of course this is why we have a recovery coach right here with us. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, thank you so much for coming through.
Yes, please.
You see, the last time you were here,
yes,
we had a conversation. Still, there was an MP whose children had become drug addicts and he had jailed them. So we had this conversation with you here. And I remember one of the things you said was that jailing someone for using drugs is actually not helping. But we'll delve into that later. I'd like for you, before we start, to tell us more about what you do.
Well, apart from being a recovery coach, which is helping people who are suffering from addictions to find their recovery and live better and productive lives, I am also an addiction prevention and recovery consultant. And so people come to me usually for an assessment, to know what to do, where to take their loved ones, or if the person realizes they have a problem and they want to solve it, then I do that. I also do go to schools, speak to administrations, speak to students, and anybody who needs to understand more about substance use and what can be done about it to prevent it or to find recovery.
All right. Now that we know what the gentleman does, I believe we are in a good place to have this conversation. And I will start by asking, according to you, who is an addict?
An addict is somebody that has lost the ability to control their use. They continue to use a substance irrespective of the consequences, no matter how severe. So when a person has developed an addiction, the first sign is that they continue doing it even when they know they shouldn't, or even when they are, advised about it. So that is an addiction, loss of control, despite negative consequences.
All right. Now, as someone that was formerly an addict, what would you say are some of the factors that are contributing to the drug usage, the illicit drug usage among teens? Because these reports of us, the statistics are concerning. We can't have 60 to 71% of the youths using addictive substances.
Yes.
What would you say are these factors that lead them there?
Well, there are very many, and I will start off by saying parental neglect. Parents are not bothered about their children. They are bothered about how much money they are making, the image they are carrying, and what they have, the office they are holding, the car they are driving, the fun they are having. And they think that the only way they try to control their children is by being their friends, which is bonding. And they don't know the science behind the bonding of a child to a parent or to any other person because of brain development. But that, I think we discussed that the last time, and they can find that in your archives.
No, some will want to get to know it right now.
Yes. Now, parents do not put other measures like creating boundaries and monitoring because they believe that the response they get from their children at the time of their interaction is what they actually are. And so these children are given so much freedom that they end up using a substance, and then when you use a substance, everything changes because it goes into your system and starts creating change. It is like saying if I eat too much sugar, it will start changing my body or physical structure, and I can develop disease. The same thing when I start using the substances, especially at a young age, from the age of 12, when brain development is beginning to grow. Certain parts of the brain are beginning to grow. Then it is interrupted by the use of these drugs. It changes the mental structure of the brain, and therefore you get a person becoming dependent on these drugs over time. The earlier they use, the more likely they are to become dependent. When you're dependent, it means I need the substance to get a particular result. For instance, if I want to have fun, I will need the drug so that I can feel good. Over time, I will not be able to feel good without the use of the substance.
So you become dependent.
Then you become dependent, and from dependence, it leads now to addiction. So it's not only about parents anyway.
I was actually, before we leave the parents,
Yes.
you said something about parents being friends to their children
Yes.
through bonding.
Yes.
And as a coach, as someone that deals with children that are addicted and have these problems, what do you say should be the balance? Where should the parents draw the line of, it's important for parents to have a relationship with their
Yes.
children and to even be friends to a degree.
Yes.
But where is the line drawn?
The balance is, I like using physical examples.
Okay.
It's like in nutrition. They will tell you have a balanced diet. Eat vegetables, eat proteins, eat carbohydrates. Don't just eat protein alone.
Yes.
You'll have a deficiency in the other. And therefore, bonding with young people, with your children, with your young ones, is very important and it's very good. But if you bond alone without creating the boundaries, without monitoring them, at their age, between the age of 13 to 21 to 25, then, okay, let me say 21 at least, because 25 people will start complaining. But if you miss
but
out...
they're still youth.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
But if you miss out the other two ingredients of monitoring them, of giving them boundaries, then they are not having a balanced mental structure being given to them. And therefore they will be able to easily learn how to manipulate you by doing things that you want and then doing things that their friends want until eventually they find out that pleasing their friends is more important than pleasing you. Why? Because the peers outnumber you and they're more interesting than you and they're of the same age and they kind of have the same vibe. So basically missing out those two ingredients is the danger.
So from your experience,
Yes.
still on the parents, because they say charity begins at home, and some of the problems are children, because at home there may not be peer pressure. At
Yes.
home it may be just a child or a number of children, you know, with their siblings, and that's it. And the peer pressure comes in at school. So would you say that most times than not, the breakage starts at the root at home before they go
Yes.
to school? So what am I trying to say? You said parents are more interested in making money, you know, being promoted at places of work and, you know, socializing with their peers at their level. So are you saying that this is actually affecting the children, that the connection is lost and the children are now finding solace with their peers when they go to school and now
Yes.
they start
Yes,
being dependent?
There is that, and it is happening a lot. And you see the problem is now, in the recent past, things have changed a bit. Everybody has got access to social media. And for those who don't have access to social media, say I deprive my young child of having, you know, access, maybe on the computer or a phone, they will start getting their information from their friend who is on social media. And then be like, oh, because now we have influencers who are absolutely useless. I am sorry to put it that way, but we are gauging influencers according to the number of followers that they are having. And people start seeming to be having valid information just because they can dance in a certain way, or because they have a certain body shape, or because they have certain other talents, which even, you know, which are questionable.
Yeah.
Now, because of all these things, the young people are following. And their brains have not yet developed to a point where they can gauge the consequences of what they are doing. So this social media thing has contributed a lot. And also, when you combine it with the lack of parental control, who do not even advise them, who don't give them information that is credible. Because the parents are too busy to even think about it. But I don't want to dwell too much on the parents.
Yes,
It might
let's
look
go. No, but of course,
we-
you know, when you're building a house, it starts with a foundation.
It starts with the foundation,
and
yes.
when it comes to a family, unfortunately or fortunately, parents are the foundation.
Yes.
So we when we get these children, we get a blank page.
Yes.
And we start writing on that page.
Yes.
And, you know, driving them into a certain direction with a nurturing and guidance.
Yes.
But now let's continue.
Yes.
When we go away from parents, where do we go?
Yeah, now we go to the systems themselves.
Okay.
The systems which do not care. We are seeing that educational systems are only interested in providing academic excellence. forgetting the most important thing, that academic excellence is not achieved from what you teach the children. It is achieved from the general mental well-being of the child. And until many of these schools get it, the few that have got it actually have started seeing the rise in their academic performance. Because number one, if the child feels safe at school, if the child feels loved at school, even at home, but at school mostly because they spend 9 months or so at school.
9 months out of the 12.
Out of the 12.
In school.
Yes, so the environment needs to be conducive. How do you teach these children? Are you friendly to them? Are you instructing them properly? Are you teaching them as opposed to punishing them for not getting things right? Are you allowing them to explore their what they like as opposed to dumping things on them and forcing them to do certain subjects? You see what I'm saying? Also, are you monitoring them, or are you just simply putting rules in place and then saying, you know what, whatever happens? So schools have a big role to play as well in order to prevent this use. And then again, now I'll go straight into social media, which is encouraging, young people to use. There is recreational use of so many drugs today, pharmaceuticals inclusive, where somebody says, you know, I can drink as much as I want, and then I will take this tablet to reduce the
pain?
The outcome, the hangover. And yes.
Oh, I've actually, so pharmaceutical use, and then of course I've seen something that is growing, getting, you know, more leverage, where people will drink and then drink Red Bull. Drink, and because they say it won't give me a hangover.
Exactly.
But we know that too much caffeine can actually stop your heart.
Forget the caffeine. Red Bull is a stimulant.
Okay.
Alcohol is a depressant.
So when these two are combined...
When you put a depressant with a stimulant together, what do you think you're doing to your heart, for instance, for starters? One is pulling, the other one is pushing. You see what I'm saying?
And what is it doing to someone's
what is it doing
faculty?
to your brain? Yes. So you see, people do things without understanding even why they are doing them, and they don't know the danger of what they are doing. They just do it because that's the norm. And the people who are making out of it are taking advantage of it. They are not interested in your well-being. I cannot be selling something that's going to destroy you and then I'd be interested in your well-being. No, I'm going to encourage you to abuse it as much as possible so that I can fill my account. And when my account is full, if anything happens to you, I will blame you for the problem, and I'll say it is you causing it to yourself. Remember at the beginning I told you that when you put this substance into your system, it changes the mental structure, it changes the way you think. I can use the temporary change that everybody can see. If somebody sits down and takes 10 bottles of, a full bottle of 40% liquor, what happens to them? Physically, you can also see that their speech is slurred. You can see that their vision is not okay. They are not even allowed to drive. They cannot walk properly. That is an immediate change in their mental state. So their mental structure is confused. Where the legs are supposed to be connecting to the brain, there is a blockage. The blocker is the drug they have used. And therefore, poor communication disables the person from normal function. Then when the person is sobering up, then the brain is readjusting back to normal. So every time you drink and then you stop drinking, stop drinking, you keep on shifting the mental structure. It gets confused. The brain does not like to be disturbed. I'll give an example, which I give everybody I talk to. If I point a gun at you, what happens to you? All of a sudden, everything changes.
Exactly. I will be stopped in my tracks.
Yes, because the brain is trying to save you. Now, you imagine people who take drugs every night. I'm including alcohol and the most common weed, which is used today. Every night, you are changing the way the brain thinks. How stable do you think it's going to be? And after a while, because of those continual changes, it is going to try a way of surviving. And that survival mechanism eventually leads to what we call psychosis, where you see a person seems to be becoming kind of mentally disturbed, or it's leading towards clinical depression or anxiety. Why is a person becoming more and more anxious over time? It's because the brain is trying to sort out the mess that you're putting into it. So when you put the drug in, it causes the change. And there is nothing you can do about the cause of that. I mean, about the change that the drug is doing, because drugs do their job. They do what they are supposed to do.
Which is
and
to
they
alter.
do it perfectly. That's it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. If you're just joining us, we are having a conversation regarding the illicit usage of drugs by by the youth in Uganda. And now we are speaking about the ages of 12 to about 24. Of course, people older are also using drugs, but the why we are more concerned about this age bracket is that most of these ones, for instance, a 12-year-old, 13, 15, they're still minors, their brains are still developing, and now they are exposed to drugs or substances like alcohol, like weed. And it is said that in families that are more well-to-do, teens there or youths there are actually exposed to even hard drugs like meth, like cocaine. And if you are wondering if those drugs are in this country, yes, the answer is yes. They are here. But now last time when you were here, you mentioned that some of these drugs get in schools in different packagings. Please tell us more about that.
I have a child in secondary school, and I drop them to school. And I remember when we took her this beginning of term, I was again observing, because I like to observe how the checking happens. And me, as even a person who used many years ago and used to take some of these things to school, I saw all the entry points, and I saw all the time wasting that people were doing. They're just wasting parents' time to get back to their work, for instance, because what they are doing practically is nothing. You have a dog, it comes, it runs around, and then maybe that careless one who has just started, maybe they'll catch them. But if I really want to bring them in, and there are two things. If I really want to bring them in, I'll find a way of doing it using the system that is not working. I know where to pass. Certain things are not checked, like in the buckets and all that. So you can bring certain things for checking, and then after the dog has done its round, you go and pick the bucket which you
had forgotten.
Which had forgotten and take it in.
Yeah.
And I say that if you want to bring those sniffer dogs to check and find if they're really drugs, this is for schools and your administrations, bring them in after the students have entered the dormitories and they have settled.
Do a
Take
recheck.
them through the classes, the toilets, the bathrooms, you'll find the ones that are hidden. Take them through the dormitories, you'll find the ones that brought them in. That is the best way to check. Otherwise, this wasting parents' time at the entrance.
But would sniffer dogs also catch drugs that are brought in form of, let's say, powdered milk, in form of biscuits, in form of chocolates? And I was so surprised when the police spokesperson said that some drugs are actually put in those bottles of, let's say, akabanga paper.
Yes.
Hey,
yes, and that's why they have stopped some things from coming into the schools. So preventing young people or restricting what is brought into school is also very important. I also don't see why the amount of money which is spent in buying grub can be used in a school canteen. Let the school canteen provide these things. There are certain systems that can be done.
Okay.
If you don't want your child to have money, you can use the coupon system. There are so many things that can be done, and we teach them in prevention methods. If a school invites us and says, you come and teach us about how to prevent the use of drugs in our school, how people bring them in and the rest. We show them ways, practical ways in which this can be done. But how many of them want to do it? I'll give you an example. For schools, third term is a no-go zone for them to get any extra education which is not academic. Because they are pumping them with matter. We call it matter. And yet
they're running against time, racing against time to close the year.
Exactly. Now, you will hear young people saying that they are stressed. They are stressed because at times they are overworked. They are given too many subjects, they are given things they cannot do, and because of that stress, peer influence can come in the form of, you know what, if this drug will help you reduce your stress. Or it will come in the form of, this one will enable you to sleep less and still remain with your endurance. We are seeing even influencers, musicians who are of so-called high regard or appeal or popular, who are chewing drugs live on social media, on TV, and people are just enjoying it. This is a bad sign to young people. You see what I'm saying? So it is difficult for young people to see these things and think it is not okay. So the school system, the parent system, if a child feels ignored and neglected, they can decide to use something which has been suggested. Google or these other social media platforms, you find out what helps me, how can I sleep better, and then they are selling you pills. What helps me get my composure, how do I feel more confident?
Now, reports indicate that many of Uganda's school-going children, and when we say children, we start from primary, secondary, and then university, are going through some bit of mental health challenges.
Yes.
It is reported that university students are highly depressed. So one wonders, first of all, for a parent out there, briefly, can we know what are the contributing factors to the stress these children are going through right from primary to university?
In Uganda, there are too many stresses. The economic situation itself is a big problem. We cannot hide that. And many young people, when they see their parents struggling and they see the suffering, they do understand it. They don't want to, those are the good children, I would say. They don't want to burden their parents, and then they take the toll on them. They keep quiet about certain things, and then they try to compromise by getting what they need from the outside.
Okay.
And that is also that contributes a lot to their stress. So many campuses go to university, and then there is the pressure of having that good phone. There is the pressure of having a car if you're a guy, having money in your pocket. If you want to have a girlfriend, you have to have money. There are all these things. You have to dress well. You have to look a certain way. You have to be able to go out and have fun. And then also the academic side, there is a lot of pressure to perform. You see how many people are in universities today. It's overwhelming. There are too many people. Where do all these people go? They are all being trained to get jobs, not to create jobs. And these are the things which even the students will look and see at the people they found in third year, fifth year, and they are still seeing them without jobs. Now you have also come to add yourself. There are all these pressures and nobody to even calm them down, and there is no information. The government is not emphasizing on helping people to understand that you can actually create jobs, because the bigger the number of people, the bigger the number of jobs you can create is available. There is such a big hole in the academic system that why wouldn't a child get stressed? Plus, wait, let me add this. There is the availability of these drugs. That drugs, you see, stress can be induced by the use of drugs when it's taken a toll on you, or you can have stress and then you use drugs to deal with the stress.
Does it work?
Depending, it doesn't, neither way works. So if you use drugs recreationally, just for fun, because you're a campuser, you just want to have fun, maybe you come from a well-to-do family where you can afford, and these drugs are actually available because people take them to the hostels, the dealers, they take them to the hostels, they give them samples and all that stuff. Now, when you take it, you need another dose, you take another dose, because you don't want the withdrawals, you become dependent on it, and then when you stop failing to get the drug, the stress comes in. The more dependent you become, the more stressed you become. So by the use of drugs, without having prior problems, you now start developing the stresses.
So
stress
at
is
the
developed
end
in
of
so
the
many
day,
ways.
what you think is going to help you calm the stress is actually
Causes the problem.
causing a bigger problem that you're
Yes.
going to have to deal with long term.
Yes.
Please join this conversation. Ask any questions that you have. Bill Bekunda is a recovery coach and a former addict himself. So he is the best person to answer some of those questions that may be burning. So please, right through. The WhatsApp number is 0709602592. Again, it is 0709602592. Please do not call, just text. I will be able to read your messages. And if you're on the X app, the hashtag is GMU, UBC GMU. I beg your pardon, UBC GMU. So ask your questions because Bill is here to answer them. Now, I have a few comments that have come through, and the first one says, the society is getting back to ancient days. Please, let's be careful with the new world order that is coming. There is no mental cost in Uganda. I don't know that to be true. Bill, you'll tell us.
Mhm.
And people are dying of drugs. People don't have where to run when they are addicts. Please, let's be specific on all drugs. Where did you pass? I think he's asking how did you get help?
Okay.
And where should people run to when they have these drug addiction problems?
Yes, I will start with that, the mention of not having courses in mental health. And yes, there are very few opportunities to do those here in Uganda, in our educational system. And the reason is because it is not marketable. Ask me, if somebody wants to have 2 hours of my time in a day, how much do they value that time to pay me for it? Because I'm not doing any other job. When you put it at a certain price, they'll be like, no, that's too expensive. And yet it's the same amount the person will spend on one bottle
of maybe whiskey.
of a drink,
yes.
of a cheap drink, let me put it that way. So there is no value for it. And when you don't value the problem, you will not value its solution. So people are not really interested in going into it. I have asked people personally who are experiencing problems with mental health within their families and they can afford, and I say, why don't you invest in this sector so that into this industry so that you can support your family, just even as that. And they'd be like, no, there is no money there. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So I would rather put up a hotel, I would rather put up, I don't know what, because there is money there, and say I will blame the problem with the mental health issue on their negligence.
Could it be because with mental health, it's not something you can really see? For instance, if mental illness is not something you can really see, because for instance, if you have malaria, you'll have symptoms, loss of appetite, you will have a fever, and you will be weak, physically weak to do anything. The same applies to many other ailments that we have. So could it be that people are also not really interested or even believe in mental illness as being a thing because you can't see them? I can't look at you and I say Bill is depressed, but for all I know is that right now you might be depressed.
Okay, I will tell you why. Because people don't take the symptoms of that disease as symptoms. They take them as behavioral problems. The symptoms of drug addiction are using more or engaging in a behavior despite negative consequences. People see that, but instead of seeing that as a symptom of the addiction, they look at it as a behavioral problem of this person. So what the symptoms of a mental health challenge are what the person does, their actions. While the symptoms of a physical disease are physical, also physical, like temperature, bringing back what you put in the stomach, weakness.
Yes.
But now when you just Google and see what are the symptoms of depression, and you'll see self-isolation. Someone is isolating. Why are you keeping to yourself?
They will say, oh, you're what? She doesn't want to.
You see.
But there
so
is a change in character.
The symptoms are there. but you are not looking at them as symptoms.
You
You're looking at them
probably they don't know that these are symptoms.
They don't know, they don't want to know, because they don't regard it as the problem.
Okay.
We like to blame. Human beings are rewarded when we have an answer. So as long as I have an answer and I say, or your what, like you said, that one has been like that. You have never asked, why are they behaving contrary to what they should be behaving as?
So there is the case of using drugs to a degree where someone loses their mental faculty entirely.
Yes.
They go, now it goes from someone taking drugs to someone being, I think it is schizophrenia,
Yes.
where now their speech is uncoordinated, their thoughts are not coordinated,
Yes.
and in most cases those are the people we dub as mad people.
Yes.
But from the knowledge I've gotten now, it is said that these are people that are mentally ill.
Yes.
And the reason I bring this up is in a family, there may be someone that has been exposed to drugs or alcohol, and they get to that point and they say, Bamulozi. They blame it on witchcraft.
Yes.
And they take them to the shrine.
Yes.
What would you say to such families?
Remember, I just told you that human beings, we are reward-oriented. You eat a nice meal, you feel satisfied. You eat a bad meal, you feel full, but you feel uncomfortable about it. Now, when a person develops a mental illness, it has come from a long line of negligence. And I will answer it by the question you asked me, that was asked by the person before, how I got help.
How you got help, yes.
When my family members realized that I can no longer take control of solving my issues, they decided to take control by bundling me up and taking me to a rehabilitation center. It was in the rehabilitation center, and the question usually comes, can you force someone in? Yes, I was taken in, and when I was put in, I couldn't access the drugs. When I couldn't access the drugs, my mind, my brain, physically started to rejuvenate. It started to correct itself because there is no longer the confusion of using and not using. And so the brain started realizing that it can actually function normally without the need of any external of the drug in it. And so being put in the treatment center started handling the situation of my understanding, and therefore I developed the capacity to be able to make a rational decision of, I think I need this, I need to get help. You cannot allow a person to get into the physical, to get the physical ability to make that decision to get better when they are still surrounded and in an environment where they can access the use of the drug, because it will always be available. What happens is you don't become schizophrenic immediately. You start by showing signs of psychosis, on and off. Somehow they look like they are beginning to lose it a little bit. And if that is not dealt with, eventually it will develop into something worse. And I remember about a few years ago when I was at one of these conferences or whatever, and statistics were being shown that in one of the mental health facilities, national facilities, that 90% of the people who developed permanent brain challenges, 90% of them in the hospital, it was due to alcohol and drugs. Only 10% was due to natural causes. They were born with it. It's that bad.
Well, so anyway, we have some more views coming through. This one says drug and substance abuse are mainly caused by youth. By one, the youth are highly exposed with these current social media activities, and Bill mentioned that. And then inadequate moral teaching by the parents. Bill mentioned this earlier, and of course peers, among others. This is Ivan Henry Opio, and he goes ahead to suggest how these disorders can be managed. He says continuous education among the young children from nursery schools about the dangers of drugs and substance abuse. Bill, do you agree with that?
Oh yes, 100%. You know, but there is one thing that many people also don't understand. which is that the earlier a person tries using a substance, the more likely they are to develop a problem. And we have these good, sweet aunties and uncles who take their 16-year-old nephew and say, have a drink of wine,
just a
know, so that they can say, oh, Uncle so-and-so is the best. You do not know what you are provoking. You put it in the person's system, they develop a liking to it, it develops into tolerance, it could lead to disaster. You see, also, before you continue, also there is the understanding that the brain of a child develops 90% by the age of 5. And then when you get to the age of 12 to 13, the part of the brain that has not yet started development, the prefrontal cortex, is the one, that's when it starts developing. And that's the part that deals with reasoning, judgment, consequences. You see
and
what I mean?
Moderation
yes.
of emotions
so
and
yes, where a person can be like, if I do this, this will happen eventually. You'll see that a 12-year-old can walk on the edge of a cliff and they are laughing because they don't see what can happen after. It is only an experience that would show them. So it's try and error for them because they use another part of the brain which is called the amygdala, which is for immediate gratification. Now, during that time, it is when, as the brain is developing, you train the parts of the brain to develop by what you are going through, understanding relationships without enhancing it with any other substance. The moment they experiment, then it takes over the ability to use that part of the brain to deal with that situation.
Wow. So someone has a question for you. This is Charles from Mutungo, and he wants to know, does mixing soda and warrage reduce the reaction in the body, hence reducing addiction, or it is just worse?
I will tell you that it is worse because it spreads. Alcohol is a molecule. Alcohol is a molecule. The molecular structure is C2H5OH. And that molecule, where it is found, becomes an alcoholic beverage. So warrage is already an alcoholic beverage. It is a gin, okay? Now, it is 40%. And when you mix it with soda, you are just spreading the molecules to enable them to be absorbed easier into the blood system. You see what I'm saying? Now, the problem is not the beverage. The problem is the alcohol content inside it. So when you put it in, so I'll say, waraji, whiskey, what are those that white drink, the nice one, they call it?
Vodka, gin.
Vodka, champagne, kavera waraji, beer, wine, name it. As long as it is alcoholic, it means that that mixture contains alcohol molecules in it, and it is the alcohol molecules that are the problem.
So it doesn't matter if it is in soda?
It doesn't matter whether it's in soda, whether it's in juice, whether it's in milk.
The content is already high.
Yes. The only other problem that can probably be added to it is if there are many impurities, like they say, if it is made in a dirty place and all that stuff. But those do not contribute to the problem that the alcohol molecule itself is doing.
So as we close, because time has run out, someone is asking if you deal with addictions. I'll ask you two things you're going to answer in 30 seconds. If you deal with addictions like betting and sexual addictions. And two, someone wants to know how they can get to you because they have an addict.
Yes, I do deal with all addictions, and the reason I deal with all addictions is because I'm a consultant now. I do send you to where you need to get your help. I help very few individuals nowadays because, I mean, on a one-to-one basis, because now I've concentrated on the wider ability to reach more and more people and show them where to go. The other one was?
How do they get your contacts?
My contacts,
they have an addict?
You can get me on my telephone number, MTN, which is 0782031223. 0782031223. Send me a WhatsApp and we'll be able to communicate from there.
Okay, thank you so much,
You're
Bill,
welcome.
for coming through. You're always very educative when it comes to the usage of drugs and, of course, recovery. And I would like to tell you, you see, Bill, he was once an addict and he's now a fine gentleman that is helping others to get out of addiction. So if you are struggling or if you have an addict, all hope is not lost. You can still do it, you can recover, and you can live a meaningful life. You can follow Bill on all social media channels. You can follow him on TikTok, on Facebook, and he always shares insights into substance recovery and, of course, substance abuse and many more regarding the matter. This is still GMU. My name is Olive Monica Najuma. Up next is Sports Updates.